Hello and welcome, I'm Kira Scribner, and today I'm going to be doing my July TBR. If you want to read any of these books alongside me, let me know and we can do this because I love talking about books with people because that's like my favorite thing on earth. So I'm going to start off with The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. I want to read this because I think it is the best way to summarize it. And it says, Jarvis Cotton's great-great-grandfather couldn't vote because of slavery. His great-grandfather was beaten to death by the KKK. His grandfather prevented a vote from Klan intimidation. His father barred from literary tests. Cotton can't vote because he is labeled a felon. I was shocked when I found out when writing this. I knew that it was mad about mass incarceration, but I didn't know in the United States you can't vote if you are a felon, if you are in jail, or if you're on parole. The country that in the world that claims to be the land of the free, the country that has 20% of the world population of imprisoned people, despite only 4% of the population, that 70% of that population are visible minorities, and 30% is white, when it's the exact opposite in the United States, where 72% of the population in the United States is white and 28% of the population is visible minorities. I'm pretty mad. I don't know how much of this will actually, this is mostly just for information, I guess, because the first thing I googled after this was Canada, and they set up polling systems in our prisons, and they especially try to help people who are in jail vote, because that's still really important. But I still want to be informed about these things, even if it doesn't directly come into my own life. 100 Years in Solitude, and I am so excited. I got about 20% into this and my audiobook lapsed, so I had to rehold it, and I'm going to be finishing in July. My only thing that I don't like about this so far is Gabriel Garcia Marquez has very questionable things when writing women. It's a level of is he trying to confront the sexism, misogyny, and sexual assault of women, or is he glamorizing it? I don't really know. And I would love people who know more about him. I've done some research, and his last book has some very questionable things about underage women especially. So I don't know, that's my thing. It follows the family, and it's magical realism, Colombian inspired, and it is beautifully written and follows this family over a century of their family lineage. But yeah, part of the conversation about women really turned me off. And then my third book on here is the collected essays of Ralph Ellison. I've been meaning to read Ralph Ellison for a really long time. The Invisible Man, I remember hearing about The Invisible Man by him and wanting to read it. And it's not an easy book to get, but I found these essays at my library, so I'm going to be reading them, and I'm very excited. My next book, I'm very excited to get to this. This is On Her Own Ground, The Life and Times of Madame C.J. Walker by Aaliyah Bundles, her great-great-granddaughter. This is a biography about the first self-made woman millionaire in the United States, and she was a Black woman, and she did it through hair products, which is really cool because I think it's never really politicized, but I definitely hear it in my personal life a lot. The one thing that is often neglected is that because hair is obviously a different texture between all ethnicities, you need special hair care things, and she did it by marketing to the Black community and marketing for their hair, so that is really awesome. I've already started a little bit. I heard this, I have a video that was talking about the Black erasure in the Self-Made TV series, so I'm interested to read this and then watch it and have a better understanding of what that YouTuber was talking about. I will link that video below. The next book I have also started but have not finished, and this is Black Enough: Stories About Being Young and Being Black in America. This is edited by Ivy Zabo, and she is the author of Pride, which is a great Pride and Prejudice retelling, which I really love. So I've been wanting to read this for some time. It is a bunch of different authors talking about different experiences and the diversity of being Black in the United States and being young. And I'm very excited. I started the first one, and I think that there's 18 of them. So I'm going to read hopefully one about every night in July and get through it, and I'm very excited. My next book is Freshwater, and I'm not going to say the author's name. I have phonetic dyslexia, which means I didn't learn how to read until I was 11 because I can't sound out words, which means I have a very, very hard time pronouncing words that are not in English, besides names, which can be pronounced even differently. So I'm going to respect the author by not pronouncing their name. And this is about a Nigerian woman and her experience with identity and her fractured selves because she feels like she has a foot on either side. And I've heard really great things by Diana and Color, who is an incredible creator. If you're not subscribed to her, you really should be. She's an aesthetic queen, but she also has such thoughtful and really, I don't know, she just sits down and she tells you about things, and it is amazing and well spoken and really makes me think about the world, which is really what I want in a content creator. Yeah, so this is a book about constructing different identities and that, and I'm very excited to read it finally. If Beale Street Could Talk, and this is by James Baldwin. I've been meaning to read James Baldwin for some time, so I'm very excited to be getting to this classic novel that was published in 1974. And this deals with love and racism and policing and what that means to have love in states of injustice. I'm very, very excited to be reading this. And I don't know that much about it. I don't know much more about his style. I know it's not his most famous works, but I've been meaning to get to him for some time. It's Moon of the Crested Snow, and I'm going to again respect this author by not pronouncing their names, although I am a little bit more familiar with Anishinaabe names than I am with Nigerian names, but still. So this is a post-apocalyptic story that sets in this small northern Anishinaabe community, and everything goes out, and now the food supply is dwindling, and it's about leadership and how about when one era ends, a new one begins. I'm very curious to read this book. It seems like it doesn't give away a lot in the synopsis, so I'm very excited to be reading this. I've definitely been trying to read more Indigenous books lately because I realized that I have many Indigenous friends, but I have not read as many books that I probably should about the Canadian experience and about our terrible past, but also books that are celebrating Indigenous people and their communities as well. My next book is a book of poems, and it's called Not One of These Poems Is About You by Tiva Harrison. I'm very interested to read this. I have not read many poems that deal with this very specific thing, and this one is about breast cancer, as Tiva is dealing with breast cancer, and it's apparently very frank and very honest and empathizing, as she looks in her inner self and has to deal with having breast cancer that I believe she is not going to be able to recover from. So I'm very interested for this. My next book is Imagine Me by Tahira Mafi, and I'm very about this book. I got to meet Tahira Mafi last year. I will have a picture there of me meeting her, and she's a style icon, and I love the way that she writes. I love A Very Large Expanse of Sea, and I love the Furthermore series, but I know that Shattered Me is it's okay. The first one deals with some things, and I think a lot about like isolation and hatred of yourself, but it's not my favorite series. But I read 5 of them in 1 week, and then I'm like, I may as well read the 6th book. So yeah, I'm not having that much high expectations, but I like to finish series, and since I read 5, I may as well read the 6th. Break by Katharina Rumet, and this is a book that deals with Métis identity and policing in a North End part of Winnipeg. For those unfamiliar, Winnipeg is the capital of Manitoba, which is the next province over from where I live, Ontario, except for it takes 24 hours to get that because Canada is a massive place. So I don't think I've ever read a book that's set in Manitoba, which is terrible because I have a book that I'm writing set in Manitoba. But I'm very excited for this. I have only ever read books that deal with Métis and Indigenous people in Ontario because that's where a large population is, and it's where I live as well. But there is a large population in Manitoba as well, and I think that's a really important part of the story to be told. For also, I think Métis is mostly a Canadian term. It is when the mixed race of Indigenous and English or French settlers in Canada, and it's along different, connected to the Indigenous community, but has a lot separate identities from necessarily their tribes originated as. It's Not All Downhill From Here is a book by Terry McMillan, and this is about a woman who is about to turn 68, and on the eve of her birthday, a loss shatters her and she has to reconsider what this life and what this world looks like. It is from a woman who is not at all afraid of getting old, and I think that that is so beautiful. I haven't read that many books that are written by people and written from the perspective of someone who is a senior citizen, and I think that is such an important perspective, that aging is not a terrible thing. And often when I read books that have older characters, they were also young or is written by a younger author, and I feel like Terry McMillan is like older, like at least 50s. So it's a similar age range as the author as well. So I think this is a really important place that we shouldn't put down people because they're getting older, yet our society does it all the freaking time. Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. I read Hunger by Roxane Gay, and it was emotional. I had to read it in 2 different parts because I have body image issues and I've had those things for a very long time. So reading it was definitely triggering, but I definitely think that it's a really important story to talk about racial identity, sexuality, body image, and sexual violence. All of those are very well discussed in this, and I'm very excited to read Bad Feminist as well. This talks about her identity and dealing with feminism. It's a collection of essays and memoir, and also about racial identity, and I'm sure many other areas as well, but I'm very excited to be reading this. I'm Still Here, Black Identity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austen Channing Brown. Austen Channing Brown was named Austen by her parents so that she would look like and sound like a white male. And this talks about how she's coming together with what her race looks like and what in organizations and systems that say they value diversity but they fall short on every way, and her journey of accepting and coming to love Blackness. And I'm very excited to this. Kingdom of the Back, and this is a book by Marie Lu. Marie Lu is a book. She is an author that I have loved for a really, really long time. London Elites is my favorite series by her, and this is her like baby from when she was young that she's been meaning to publish for a really long time, and it's historical fiction. I've been told it also has some fantasy aspects, and it deals with Mozart's little sister, who is also a prodigy and also like really brilliant, and yet her genius and her artistness was brought down when she hit puberty. They were like, you can't do this anymore. It was fine when you were a little girl, but now you gotta get married and not be a pianist anymore. Terms I know. So I'm very excited to read this. I've been meaning to for some time, and now libraries are open, it needs to go back. So yeah, I'm gonna be reading this. Who have been here the last few months will know that I've been loving my reread of The Hunger Games. I stopped in the end of May because I thought that there's more important books that I should be reading and really taking my focus on than a book by a white woman. So that is my reason for my hiatus between reading the first two and reading Mockingjay and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But I do want to read this, and I have to read it for my book club, so I'm going to be reading Mockingjay as well as Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes this month. I'm very excited. I don't think I need to summarize what Mockingjay is about. And last and certainly not least, I have Jane Austen July, which is hosted by some amazing people. And I meant to participate last year and then I just didn't. So I'm hoping that's not going to happen, although obviously I have quite a large one. My priority for this month would be to reading Sense and Sensibility because I've never read it before. And I also really want to reread Northanger Abbey because I had such high expectations for both of them. Well, expectations for Northanger Abbey, and I didn't get to completely complete them, but I think I lost some of the humor by listening to the audiobook. So I'm very curious, now that I'm more well read in classic books and more read in the tropes that it's making fun of, how much I will enjoy it now. But yeah, I could summarize them, but I'm not going to. Anyways, happy reading and writing. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you stayed long enough, put some black hearts and snake things. I don't know, this was coming off on this part. I always love when people do that, because then I'm like, even if I don't have like something great and amazing to say about it, I get to still participate. You can catch me on social media, mostly my Instagram and Twitter. They're both linked below. I do stories all the time and try to keep people up to date with what I'm reading, and yeah, I'll see you in July. Bye.